On the record at 10:10 a.m.
Okay, Mr. Davis, you understand you're still under oath, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And on January 3rd, 2020, Mr. Coleman worked as a flight attendant on a trip to Buffalo, correct?
Yes, that is
And,
correct.
and you became aware of an alleged incident concerning his conduct at the Buffalo Hyatt Regency Hotel on January 4th, 2020, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, can you identify all the persons who participated in or contributed to, in any capacity, the investigation into the events of January 4th, 2020?
Yes. Juan Ramos, who was the base manager at the time, and then Grizel Camacho and Wanda Garcia.
Did you become involved in any way in the investigation of the events that occurred on January 4th, 2020 at the Buffalo Hyatt Regency Hotel?
Yes.
Okay. How did you become involved?
I was asked to reach out to Clay for a statement. I was also asked to set up a meeting with Clay, Grizel, and myself, which I did do and attended. Also, I was asked to deliver the message several months later, or 2 months later, I think, that the decision was made to move forward with separation.
Do you know who Melissa McDowell is?
Yes,
Who is she?
she's also a flight attendant at JetBlue.
Did she have any involvement in the investigation of the alleged incident of January 4th, 2020 at the Hyatt Regency Hotel?
Yes, Mr. Ramos asked me to reach out to her for a statement.
And did you obtain a statement from Melissa McDowell?
I did.
Did you also speak to Melissa McDowell or just obtain the statement?
Just obtained the statement. I may have spoken to her. I do not recall.
Do you recall if her statement referenced any signs of inebriation or alcohol consumption specifically?
It did not.
When did you first learn of the alleged incident of January 4th, 2020?
The morning of the 5th.
And now, who informed you that there had been an alleged incident?
I am almost positive it was Juan Ramos.
And what did he tell you at that time?
From memory, just that Clay had been detained while he was on his layover, that he appeared to be inebriated and that he was combative with the police when they were trying to get him to gather his belongings from his hotel room. And then he asked me to reach out to Clay for a statement.
Did he did he tell you what his sources of information were?
He did not, that I recall.
Did he ever disclose to you what the sources of his information were?
Not that I recall.
Aside from Melissa McDowell, did you ever speak to any witnesses who observed Mr. Coleman's behavior on January 4th, 2020?
I personally did not.
Do you know of any other JetBlue management representative and by which I would mean to include Grizel Camacho, Wanda Garcia, Juan Ramos, or anyone else in JetBlue management who spoke directly to any witness with respect to the events of January 4th, 2020.
To my knowledge, no.
Now you obtain a written statement from Melissa McDowell and from Mr. Coleman, correct?
Correct.
Did you obtain any other written statements?
No.
Were you the initial contact with Mr. Coleman after the January 4th, 2020 incident?
Yes.
And you say you asked me for a statement, correct?
Correct.
Now I'm going to do something I've never done before because I always had some younger, savvier person handling this part. I'm going to try to share a document. Oh, but actually, you have these documents, correct?
I have everything in front of me, so if you can't do it, don't
Oh.
worry.
All right. So Beth, I mean, is it a problem for you? I sent them to you as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is that okay if we just proceed manually?
Yes.
That's okay? Okay. It'd probably be good for me if I just tried it a couple of times. I'm gonna push it off. I'm gonna push off learning new things just as long as I can. I'll be fortunate enough to die before the next technological leap. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, I'm going to ask you to turn to what we have not marked, but other than electronically, but it's Exhibit B. We're going to treat it as Exhibit B, and the first page is an email from Juan Ramos to Wanda Garcia, dated January 7th. Do you see that? It's the thickest package that you have.
I printed them all out at once, so hold on one second.
Okay. And let me.
Did you say January 7th?
Yeah.
I have it.
Oh, you do? Okay. Okay. All right. Then we'll keep doing it manually. Now you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's what we call date stamping. It's paginated, and the first page is JB 000906. Do you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is turn within the packet to 923. Excuse me, 922. Excuse me, 922.
Okay. Got it.
And if you could look at 922 and 923, maybe just a quick perusal, and then maybe I'll invite you to read it start to finish. But would this be, and for the record, I'll identify it. It's an email from Clay Coleman to David Davis with a CC to Clay Coleman, and it's subject diabetic incident at the Buffalo Hyatt Regency.
Yes.
And it's a 2-page document, 922 to 923. Is that the statement that Mr. Coleman provided you in response to your request?
That is correct.
Now, actually, before we go on with this, you were not at this time his direct supervisor?
I was not.
Okay, so do you know why you were being asked to interface with him at this time?
I honestly do not. The only reason that would ever happen, and has happened in the past, is if the supervisor is on vacation or on some sort of special assignment.
But in this instance, you don't, and his direct supervisor would have been Linda Reyes at this time?
Correct.
Okay, and you don't know specifically whether she was on leave or on vacation at this time?
I do not recall. I know that I was the only one in the office that morning because I would open the office very early. So another possibility may have been that Juan just wanted to get the statement immediately. And so he asked me to gather it. And once I was involved, he kept me involved.
I I see. Now, what I'd like to ask you to do is actually read through the statement to yourself,
Mhm.
this page and a half, and let me know at your own pace, and let me know when you've completed reading it.
Okay. Okay. Complete.
Uh, would you agree with me that at JetBlue, an employee could be subject to discipline for submitting an untruthful statement?
Yes.
Now, after reading this, could you tell me, did you ever determine that any factual representation contained in this statement at 922 to 23, did you ever determine that there was any factual representation that was untruthful?
Me personally, no.
Correct. I'm sorry, was the answer no?
Correct. Sorry, am I muted? Yes.
No,
No.
I stepped on you. So.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, me personally, no.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Did you ever, was there someone else in management who advised you that he or she had determined that there was untruthful information in this statement?
No.
Now, on January 6th, the day after this statement was transmitted to you, there was a meeting between Mr. Coleman and management representatives concerning what occurred at the Hyatt Hotel on January 4th, correct?
If that was the 7th, yes. If it was myself and Grizel, then yes.
Okay, okay. On this, so whether it was the 6th or the 7th, you attended a meeting with Mr. Coleman and other management representatives, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you say Grizel Camacho attended?
Correct.
And who else was present?
Just myself and Clay.
Oh. So just the three of you attended.
Yes.
Was there any discussion between you and Grizel Camacho prior to meeting with Mr. Coleman?
Nothing regarding this. I got there very shortly before he did, before Clay did.
Now, isn't it true that you had a discussion with Mr. Coleman prior to the commencement of the meeting?
I don't remember. It's very likely.
Would you have any recollection of any discussion you had with Mr. Coleman prior to the commencement of the meeting attended by you and Ms. Camacho?
Other than small talk, I do not. I do recall that I went to the front desk at Orlando Service Center to get Clay and bring him back to Crew Relations office.
Well, isn't it true that during that small talk, you encouraged Mr. Coleman not to worry?
I probably did.
Yeah.
He was
So
very upset.
Okay. Can you tell me what happened at that meeting between the three of you, you and Ms. Camacho and Mr. Coleman?
Absolutely. Clay explained the story, which was in line with his statement. He was very upset. He was crying. He was upset by the treatment from the Buffalo police. He was embarrassed. He promised that he was not intoxicated. And that was basically it. I can't remember if I escorted him out, but I do remember I gave him a hug because the two of us felt terrible. I mean, he was very, very upset.
Did you believe the account that Mr. Coleman provided at that meeting?
I did.
Did you ever reach a point where you changed your opinion in terms of Mr. Coleman's credibility?
No.
Yeah. Now, after the meeting, would you agree that you told him that he had nothing to worry about?
No, I don't agree with that.
But isn't it true that you told him that he was not going to be terminated after the meeting?
I would have no way of knowing that. I wouldn't have told him that.
And you say you did hug Mr. Coleman after the meeting?
I did.
Would you agree that you told Mr. Coleman that he did great at the meeting?
I may have.
After the meeting, you told Mr. Coleman that he would be reassigned to flight duty, correct?
I don't remember saying that.
Well, in fact, after the meeting, Mr. Coleman was reassigned to flight duty, correct?
Yes.
So after receiving reports of the incident, JetBlue did suspend him from duty for 2 or 3 days, correct?
Yes. A couple of months later, I believe.
What do you mean a couple months later?
A couple of months after the incident. I believe.
No, what I'm saying is when JetBlue learned of the incident, Mr. Coleman was in the middle of a flight, was in the middle of a trip, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And they did not, and they made arrangements to discontinue his service on that trip, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
But after the meeting, a decision was made to restore him to flight duty, correct?
Yes.
And who made that decision?
I do not know. I am assuming Juan and Grizel.
Are you now, you assume that because they would have had the authority to make that decision?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned was Juan Ramos at this meeting?
Yes. No, he was not at that meeting.
Okay. Okay. Do you remember anything further about the discussion you had with Mr. Coleman after the meeting?
No. I very well may have told him, please try not to worry about this.
You told him that you believed him, correct?
I think I told him that in the meeting.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, after the meeting, did you have any discussions with Grizel Camacho concerning the meeting with Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Okay. What was the nature of that discussion?
Basically, it was me. She didn't want to say too much, but basically it was me. And I said, I feel so bad. I don't think he would have any reason to lie about this. That I remember very specifically.
And how did she respond to that?
I don't remember.
What information did you have at the time the meeting commenced, other than Mr. Coleman's statement?
That was all I had.
Did you have Melissa's statement by that time?
I don't believe so.
But you had spoken to her previously, prior to the meeting?
I'm pretty sure I asked her for a statement that same day.
Okay. Did Ms. Camacho agree or state that if the January 4th incident was attributed to Mr. Coleman's diabetic condition, that he should not be disciplined?
Not that I recall. I don't think she said that specifically.
Okay. Did you and Ms. Camacho discuss Mr. Coleman's diabetic condition at all?
No,
But during the meeting, Mr. Coleman recounted the events that were in his statement that we went over at 922 to 923.
correct.
Okay, and his account was consistent with his statement.
Yes.
Was there any determination made on the part of Ms. Camacho that more information should be obtained concerning his diabetic condition?
Not with me in that meeting.
Did you later learn that JetBlue was seeking additional personal medical information from Mr. Coleman?
I just learned that actually.
Okay.
It was an assumption on my part, but I did not know for sure.
So prior to Mr. Coleman's termination in March 2020, you had no discussion with anyone in JetBlue management, including Mr. Ramos, Ms. Camacho, Ms. Garcia, concerning Mr. Coleman's medical condition, correct?
Correct. I don't recall any conversations after that meeting.
What additional, and I hope you're not confused by having learned all the things from the documents that we sent you yesterday. But I really want to know what you knew back in 2020. So my question is, beyond Mr. Coleman's statement, what additional information did you acquire from the close of that meeting with Ms. Camacho until the date of Mr. Coleman's termination?
Nothing. I don't recall any other information after that meeting.
Did you do any research into whether a diabetic episode can result in disorientation or sluggish movement or impediments to speech?
No.
Do you know if anyone else in the company engaged in such research?
I do not know. Excuse me.
Are you familiar with the reference to acetone breath, ACETONE?
Not until that day when Clay explained it.
did you in 2020, after this meeting in January, did you engage in any research into the term acetone breath and what that meant?
I did not.
Do you know if anyone else within JetBlue management engaged in such research?
I do not know.
Are you familiar with a potential for a diabetic episode to result in the production or excretion of byproducts in the respiratory tract that smell like alcohol?
I am now. Was not aware back then.
Okay. And then you were not aware at any time prior to Mr. Coleman's termination? Prior to Mr. Coleman's termination, were you, did you have knowledge of that potential?
No.
Did you ever review any police reports related to the January 4th incident?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. No, so not prior to Mr. Coleman's termination, you read no police reports, correct?
Correct. I was privy to that.
And prior to Mr. Coleman's termination, the only knowledge you had concerning any interaction he had with the police would have come from either Mr. Coleman's statement or Ms. McDowell's statement, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that at the end of the meeting in January between you and Mr. Coleman and Ms. Camacho, that you told Mr. Coleman that all he had to do was to provide a doctor's report to back up his contention that he had suffered a diabetic episode on January 4th?
I recommended to him that he get the information, but no, not that that's all he has to do.
Okay. Did you have any, and you had no discussions with Ms. Camacho concerning medical information?
I don't believe so. Unless it was mentioned in the meeting, which I don't recall.
If we can, in that same package, oh, and you may not have stapled it, but I'm going to ask you to move to pages 910 to 912.
Yep, got it.
So just for the sake of the record, there's an email from Clay from the address cjkmedic@aol.com to Wanda Garcia, which states, "Wanda, this is my official diagnosis from my doctor. I hope this answers your questions." And there follows 2 pages titled Summary View for Coleman Clay, account number 143664. So we're looking at page 910 and the next two pages, was this information ever forwarded to you?
No.
And if you could move to what should be 918. Yeah, which is just, document, the first line is Family Medical Center, Richard H. Janovitz, Janovitz, MD. Are you with me on 918?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and was this information ever forwarded to you?
No.
From the time of the meeting with Ms. Camacho and yourself, with Mr. Coleman in January, through the date of his termination, did you have any discussion with anyone within JetBlue concerning Mr. Coleman's diabetic condition?
No.
Do you know whether anyone within JetBlue management? Okay, well, let me back up. Did anyone within JetBlue management ever tell you that he or she had determined that Mr. Coleman was inebriated at the hotel on January 4th?
I don't believe so. Meaning that they had, I'm so sorry to cut you up, meaning that they had factual evidence that he was inebriated?
Correct.
No.
Okay. At the time he was terminated, was it your understanding that his speech had been impaired on January 4th at the hotel?
As I recall, yes, I think that was communicated to me.
Okay. And at the time of the termination, was it your understanding that he had difficulty walking and maintaining his balance?
Yes.
And was it your understanding that that his sight of vision became fixed on January 4th, that he was staring off into space?
I don't recall that piece.
Okay. Do you know what role Juan Ramos played, if any, in the investigation of the January 4th Hyatt incident?
The only thing that I can clearly recall was a representative of the hotel sending him a statement.
And other than that, you have no knowledge of the nature of any investigation Mr. Ramos may have conducted?
I do not.
And do you have any knowledge of the role of Wanda Garcia, if any, in the investigation of the Hyatt incident of January 4th?
I do not.
Now, Mr. Coleman continued after his reinstatement to flight duty in January, after his meeting with you and Ms. Camacho, he continued to perform flight duties for JetBlue until mid-March of that year, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if the scope of his flight duty was reduced in any manner during that period?
No,
So to the best of your knowledge, he was permitted to bid and fly a standard schedule during that 2-month period.
correct.
And JetBlue was not experiencing a flight attendant shortage at that time, correct?
Not at that time.
No. In fact, they were trying to encourage flight attendants to go on a voluntary furlough, correct?
Not at that time. That happened a few months later.
Okay. Did you participate in any decision-making process to restore Mr. Coleman to flight duty after January 4th, 2020?
No.
And do you know who made the decision?
I do not.
Do you know what the basis for that decision was?
I do not.
Would you agree that JetBlue's reinstatement of Mr. Coleman to flight duty after January 4th, 2020 reflected its preliminary determination that he posed no risk to flight?
Object to form. Go ahead and answer if you know.
So, yeah, we're at a deposition. There is no judge to rule on objections. So therefore, there may be an objection. And that unless you're specifically directed not to answer it, you go ahead and answer. However, the interjection throws people off their paces. So I'm just going to restate the question for you.
Please.
And then so you don't have to struggle with memory. And I got them all written down because I wouldn't remember these things myself. Would you agree that JetBlue's reinstatement of Mr. Coleman to flight duty after January 4th, 2020 reflected its preliminary determination that he posed no risk to flight?
Yes.
And would you agree that JetBlue's reinstatement of Mr. Coleman to flight duty after January 4th, 2020 reflected its determination that he had no substance abuse problem?
Object to form.
Do you
I'll
need
have
that?
to. I'll have to say yes.
Okay. And would you agree that JetBlue's reinstatement of Mr. Coleman to flight duty after January 4th, 2020 reflected its determination that it was unlikely that he engaged in alcohol-related misconduct during his January stay at the Hyatt Hotel?
Object to form.
No.
Now, why do you say no to that?
Because that determination couldn't possibly have been made at that time.
But you don't know what additional information was collected after the meeting, to the best of your recollection, was with Ms. Camacho and Mr. Coleman. Was, you believe it to be January 7th?
Yes.
Do you know what additional information JetBlue obtained after January 7th related to the Hyatt incident?
I do not know specifically. I do know that they were talking about obtaining video. I don't know if that happened or not.
Did you ever see a video?
I did not.
Do you know of any from the time he was reinstated to flight in January? Do you know of any deficiencies in Mr. Coleman's work performance from the time of his reinstatement in January 2020 until the date of his termination on March 16th, 2020?
No.
After learning that Mr. Coleman had diabetes, did you ever discuss with him any accommodations that might be arranged to help him manage his diabetes while working?
No,
Do you know if anyone else did?
I do not. Excuse me.
Are you aware of any accommodations that JetBlue has provided to other flight attendants with diabetes?
No.
Mr. Davis, would you agree that in terms of the termination of Mr. Coleman, you were a messenger for the decision that was not
Yes.
made by you?
That is correct.
And that after the meeting with Ms. Camacho, you played no further role in the investigation of this matter, correct?
Correct. That is correct. Yes.
And would you agree that you never came to the conclusion that Mr. Coleman was inebriated at the Hyatt on January 4th?
That is correct.
Um, So I guess I'll move to what I've designated as Exhibit E, and it's titled "A Declaration of Grizel Camacho."
Pardon me.
Let me know when you have it.
Do you happen to have a number for that?
A number? No, I don't have a number, but this might be a good time for me to just get over my hangups about screen share. So let me try this.
Okay. I'll look in the meantime, just in case.
I should grow up a little bit. Okay. Look at me. All right,
Perfect.
you can look at the, yeah, you can look at the screen.
Hey,
What?
Lee, it helps if you make that document full size on your screen,
Yeah,
because then it'll make it bigger for him to be able to view it.
yeah. Well, can you
Sorry.
read the language there?
The
Well,
highlighted?
When I stop sliding it around. Actually, let's go to the first page. Can you read that? It says Declaration of Grisel Camacho.
Yes.
I feel like I'm an optometrist. Tell you whether you, well, you're wearing glasses anyway. And I'm asking, I'm controlling this now. So I'm moving down to paragraph 18, which is now covered a little bit. There we go. Where it reads paragraph 18, which starts with the word specifically. You see where I am?
Yes, I read that yesterday too.
Okay. And it says specifically, I recall speaking with Mr. Davis, Mr. Ramos, and Ms. King about plaintiff's misconduct and the appropriate disciplinary action, and that we collectively came to the conclusion that termination was appropriate. Insofar as it relates to your participation, Mr. Davis, this statement is not true. Would you agree with me?
I would agree that that statement is inaccurate. I was told to deliver the message. I was not in on, my opinion was not asked.
Okay, and did you have any role in approving the final paperwork
No,
for the termination?
that's above my pay grade. I just sent him the final information as it relates to insurance, payroll, PTO hours. It's a form letter, and I signed it.
And who gave you that letter?
Oh, that's on our SharePoint file. We all have access to that.
I know,
You just have to change the name.
the term. So you signed Mr. Coleman's termination letter, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay. And do you know who drafted that letter?
I don't. That's been the template for years.
Or do you know who transmitted it to you?
I have access to it. I had access to it from my computer. All supervisors did. You just go in and change the name of the crew member.
Oh, I see. Okay. So in other words, someone told you to go to draft the termination letter.
Correct. Well, that's the standard practice. Unfortunately, I've done it many times. So I was told to issue the separation, and with issuing the separation means tell them verbally over the phone, confirm their address, and send out the separation letter.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll come back to that. Are you familiar with a document used at JetBlue referred to as crew member progressive guidance report?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of a crew member progressive guidance report?
Like I stated earlier, that's just there's three different tiers to just kind of get you on the right path. So it goes initial, continued to final.
And before a progressive guidance report is issued, would the team leader for the flight attendant concerned be consulted?
Yes.
If we can move, yeah, so now I'm in the swing of this. Let me try this again. I'm going to move to F if I can. Look at me. Okay, so I put on the screen a document. I'll follow Lillian's advice, expanding this a little bit. There's a crew member progressive guidance report, and underneath it says date of occurrence / trigger event January 4th, 2020. Prior to receipt, you received this document yesterday as well, correct?
Correct.
And prior to receiving it yesterday, had you ever seen this document?
I don't remember seeing this before yesterday.
Do you recall a discussion with anyone at JetBlue concerning a suspension of Mr. Coleman in March prior to his termination?
Only that Mr. Ramos told me that he was being suspended.
And what else did Mr. Ramos tell you at that time?
That was it.
Did he tell you the reasons for his suspension, for Mr.
Nope.
Coleman's suspension?
No.
Would you agree that you play no role in the decision to suspend Mr. Coleman prior to his termination?
I did not.
And do you know what the basis for this suspension was?
I only assumed. I did not know. There was no real discussion about it. He told all the supervisors, just to let you know, we're placing Clay on suspension.
Okay. So let's move back to Exhibit B, and that's something that you have. That's the fat package.
The whole thing is fat. I just printed everything.
Okay. Oh, it's stapling it. But it's in the same vicinity we were looking at, or we were looking at place statements, and it was bait stamp 922 to 923.
Yes.
And then what I'm going to ask you to move to 932. So move to the actual termination letter.
Got it.
So this was the termination that you issued, the termination letter that you issued to Mr. Coleman, correct?
Correct.
And then that was issued on or about March 16th, 2020.
Correct.
And would you agree with me? I don't mean to rush you, but well, let me take a back step. This was you said this was essentially a form where you just had to fill in the name of the recipient.
The name, obviously the date, the address, and the reason for separation.
Okay. Okay. Well, the reason for separation is stated as violation of company policy, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there's no further elucidation or provision of detail concerning what the policy was, correct?
Correct.
And there's no recitation of the facts that constituted a violation of company policy, correct?
Correct.
Right. And okay. if I could move you to page 920.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah. So we're looking at a document titled Crew Relations Separation Review. And under that, it says crew member ID, Clay Coleman, 11352. And there's a subheading that says supporting documentation. And it has 8 entries
Mhm.
there. Could you tell us whether you ever received prior to yesterday any of the 8 entries that are referenced under supporting documentation?
the crew member statement.
That would be Melissa McDowell.
I believe they're referring to Clay.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay.
No, no problem. That would be it,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
of course.
Uh, if you could move in that package to it would be the first page in this package. It's 906.
Got it.
So if you move down to the second email in this thread, which reads from one A Ramos to Ed Backlor, Baklor. Do you see where I am?
Yes.
Do you know who Ed Backlor is?
Yes. At the time, he was vice president of in-flight field operations.
Do you know what role he played, if any, in the investigation of Mr. Coleman in 2020?
I do not.
And if you could move to page 919.
Pardon me. Okay.
Prior to yesterday, did you ever receive this document?
No, this did not look familiar to me at all.
And forgive me, I'm going to go back to where we were before, the 920-921,
Sure.
the crew relations separation review.
Got it.
Okay. And prior to yesterday, did you ever receive this 2-page document?
No.
Other than Mr. Coleman, do you know of any flight attendants during your employment with JetBlue? Do you know of any other flight attendants working for JetBlue who had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes?
None that I know of.
I'd like to take a 10-minute break. I've really reduced the questions substantially based on the testimony. So I may be wrapping this up fairly quickly, but I want to review my notes and see where I am. So if we could actually, why don't we say, if there's no objection, if we take a break until 11:25?
That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Off the record at 11:11 a.m. On the record at 11:25 a.m.
Mr. Davis, I'll try not to keep you more than 5 minutes or so.
No problem.
I previously showed you the statement that Mr. Coleman gave to you on January 5th that we identified at 922, 923 in terms of the bait stamp. And you said that you received that statement after you requested it, correct?
Correct.
And that you reviewed it and never found any reason to discount its truthfulness, correct?
Correct.
And in that statement, Mr. Coleman described that or recounted that his disorientation, his speech slurring, his loss of balance was due to a diabetic episode, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree that at the time that you issued the termination letter to Mr. Coleman, that you felt uncomfortable about that decision?
Yeah, I did.
And why did you feel uncomfortable?
I'll just be very honest, mainly because Clay and I had, excuse me, had always gotten along very well, and I had never known him not to be honest with me. That said, I was not privy to whatever information that Crew Relations and Mr. Ramos uncovered. So I assumed it was with good reason, but yes, I was uncomfortable.
I have no further questions. I'll pass the witness in case Ms. Moon has questions for you.
I do not have any questions. He will read.
Would you like to go off the record at this time?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We are off the record at 11:27 a.m. and this concludes today's testimony given by David Davis.